Good morning, guys. Good morning. Crude oil down 3% this morning, huh? So the big one is going to be some NVIDIA earnings. Good morning, Bracco. How are you, man? Yeah, the big one today is just NVIDIA earnings. I know MU just came out and gave some guidance, and they had a little bit of a gap down. I mean, effectively, they're with the gap up, they gap back down to flat. So pretty much like a nothing burger there. Thought crude oil stocks are starting to look pretty interesting, but man, crude oil gapping down 3%. I guess these names aren't really moving on the back of crude anyway, and they haven't been for months. Yeah, XOM taking a bit of a spill because of it. Yeah, I didn't take BMNR because I just missed it. I was watching this kind of remount VWAP, and I just didn't pull the trigger. I saw the morning drive, and I was like, man, you know what? These things have gotten so beaten up. The sentiment is super negative. You've got Michael Saylor out here. You've got Michael Saylor, posting photos of him leaving the Titanic. I mean, I was just like, if there was a time to play these things for a, 2-3 day bounce, the time is now. Plus, on the way down, you started to see this nice little ramp up in volume. It didn't get gigantic, so maybe there wasn't like some huge capitulation, but you kind of got down to these same levels that you were in July. And then with this morning ramp, I then ended up seeing this thing just kind of wash out and take out the lows. And I actually kind of like that it did that because, it just washed out anybody else who had been trying to buy this thing, kind of for a multi-day rebound. And then as soon as we remounted VWAP, I was literally watching it right on this 5-minute bar. And I just was like, all right, I'm going to wait a few minutes and then see if it's still holding VWAP. I literally take my eyes off of it for like 10 minutes and, it does this. And at this point, I was like, dang it, I kind of missed it. This hold of VWAP here would have gotten me pretty interested just from an intraday perspective. And yeah, I just didn't play it. Nor typically I'm not comfortable just buying something that's just washing out. But I thought it was good just based on MSTR action as well. I mean, you could see MSTR action even for like the first 20 minutes of the day. It was just grinding higher. So, and then Netflix was fairly simple, right? A few days ago, it did kind of what I thought, which was when this thing ramped up, it almost came right into the 50-day and then rejected. And then yesterday, I actually thought we were almost going to go right back into the 200 and reject. I was a little bit early before the 200, but I was using the 200 as my risk off. I effectively had a $112 average. So I was just a touch early with about $1.20 of risk. So very, very small risk. And then similarly today, if we start to lose the 200, or if NVIDIA's earnings aren't all that great and the market starts to act a little bit heavy, I still think that it's possibly shortable using that 200 as your guide. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I also had, I still have some shorts working from before. So when you're getting traction on one side of the market, it's easier to continue to go back to that side of the market because that's the side that's paying you, right? That's like the path of least resistance. And like, TSM I took is the day before, almost similar concept, but obviously not against the 200, against the 50-day. And I ended up shorting this thing like 284, with my stop at 286 and a half. And then what happens the very next day? It gaps down, it rolls over a little bit more in the morning. So, it kind of makes it pretty easy when, you go and do something and then you're being rewarded 24 hours later. So it's just my thinking. Yeah, I agree completely, Brack. You're when you're trying to play, a BMNR. I mean, there was a pickup in volume, but it could have gotten even more violent, right? I mean, the only thing you really have, and let me tell you, like Bitcoin and Ethereum still don't act amazing. I mean, I noticed the bounce yesterday, but you know, for all we know, this thing is just going to go sideways down here for another week or two. I would want to see like much bigger volume on Bitcoin, much bigger volume on Ethereum before I think that those moves are kind of done. CGAU. I like the way it's tightening up, but man, it's just so thin. It's hard to play these, man. They only trade sub $20 million in a day. It only takes one player to knock your stock down. Yeah, Guardian, I kind of like what this one's been doing. The strongest sector in the market is XLV, right next to energy. NUE's doing better. NUE's doing better. STLD is one that, has been acting even better. STLD, I would say, is the leader for steel. Yeah, ALNY. Let me just take a quick peek here. Yeah, the only thing that I would say against ALNY is I don't love biotechs, but yeah. Yeah, huge pickup in volume on BMNU. Nice eye on that. Looks like they're all getting out of the leveraged ETF. Yeah, the problem is it's not the earnings that matter to me. The earnings, I'll read the earnings for the sake of doing so, but the earnings don't matter. And Palantir told you that earnings don't matter, right? I thought Palantir had its best earnings that I've ever seen Palantir post. And then the problem was that it gapped down. So the earnings aren't what's important. It's the reaction to those earnings. Dicom. Yeah, this isn't ugly at all. This looks good. Gapping up overnight on earnings. Not bad. Yeah, it's just daily moving. It's just intraday moving averages. And guys, I talk about the 620 setup quite a bit, but it's not a daily setup. It's an entry tactic. I get a lot of people tell me like, oh, they'll tell me in the room, Ariel, it's triggering a 620 setup. Do I take it? And then I look at the daily and it's literally in no man's land. There's no price structure on the daily. It's not against the key moving average. It's not breaking a prior range. It's not undercut and rallying. It's doing nothing. So make sure that you're using that entry tactic in conjunction with the daily chart, right? It's just an entry tactic. It's not a, this chart looks good on the daily. This looks buyable here with low risk, right? That's the whole idea. The whole idea is that your focus is on the daily and then you get an entry tactic so that you can manage risk properly. That's all that 620 setup is. So just make sure that you're kind of thinking about it like that whenever you see it trigger. Yeah, looks like gold. So gold and silver looks pretty good. I see that gold's gapping up 1% overnight. And I did have some gold miners on my watch into this morning. I already own NEM. So we'll just kind of keep our eye on this one and maybe we get a chance to add. TSEM? No, there's no setup there. Right? This thing is just straight up. You wanted good setup on TSEM. It was coming out of this consolidation here. See how it goes up and then you go sideways? Well, now I'll ask you, where's the sideways? This isn't long enough. It's over 4 times its ATR from the 50. That's not something that I'll buy. No traction at all this month. 21 trades, down 5%. So what that sounds like to me is you're getting more aggressive or you're not reducing your size, by trades number 10 or 5, right? Like when I get to trade number 5 in a row of no traction, I know I'm no longer on 10% positions. I go to 5%. And like I haven't even been on a 10% position since like Tesla broke out from 360, because I'm either over trading, it's too choppy, or I'm not getting any traction. I've been keeping it like at 5%, or I'll do like a 3% position. And then once it's working for me, I'll get another like 3% add on. So what 21 trades and you're down 5% means either your stops aren't tight enough, you're taking obviously too many trades, too big of position size, and then you're not sizing things down. So you shouldn't be down 5%. I did 12 losing trades in a row, and I was down 1.5%. Thoughts on Neo? There's no setup here. And if I'm going to buy an EV name, it would probably be XPEV first. And this price action here sucks. Maybe. It's not bad. It's not extended. It looks like it's basing. It's not super illiquid. Don't know how I feel about it just yet. You shorted SNDK yesterday. So I shorted SNDK the day before when we started to lose that 268 level right here. And then I added a tiny piece to it yesterday, right when we took out prior day low. And for now, I'm just sitting on it. I've got like a 260 at the moment. So, I mean, I don't think it was terrible. But like Bracco would say, there's been no upside capitulation just yet. But ultimately, let's just say MU are going to continue to roll over. I think it would affect the sector. So it'll be interesting to see if MU just doesn't bounce right at yesterday's lows, or if we stay heavy and we start to roll over towards the 50. That'll be kind of a decider. And obviously Nvidia's earnings will as well. If you look at SNDK yesterday, I would then tell you to look at the SMH intraday yesterday. You'll notice they look identical. I like Halozyme. This is a company that's been growing for a while. Super choppy, not necessarily the cleanest chart. I mean, upper wicks galore. So there's clearly some sellers there, but doesn't look bad. Yeah, marine shipping. Yeah, like DAC is one of them. DAC's probably, the almost the leader in that space. Zim probably is another. Just starting to turn up. Yeah, there's no real awesome setups at the moment. Just be patient. Kind of looks like a big VCP pattern. Maybe. I can't buy it once it's straight up like this. I mean, it is tightening up here. Yeah, not bad. Not bad. Big base, too slow. Right? KIE is not something you should be playing. It moves 1.35% per day. That's not what you want to own. Yeah, KGC, not bad. And then Barrick is another one that looks really good too. This has been your leader, at least most recently. Barrick, and then Hecla stopped you out, the largest silver miner. This thing still looks pretty good too. Doesn't look that bad. Why did I go with meme over nugget? Because I wasn't sure if I was going to be right. And one of the first things that I like to do, like when there's a big opportunity, I don't mind trading the leveraged. But when I'm unsure, I would rather go with the more liquid, right? The less volatile, right? When you're like just trying to dip a toe, you go with the less volatile. When you're highly convicted, you can go with the more volatile. Do I give importance to diversification across leading sectors? I do not. Yeah, no. Let's say you already own an oil stock. Would you rather buy a gold miner or a biotech instead of a second oil stock? No, if I'm gaining traction in an oil name, I like to, it's going to be hard to get 50, 60% of the account into the oil names anyway. But like if all I had was 10% position in oil, I'd want another one, especially if the first one's working. When you have a lot of cash sitting idle, do you have anything that? No, I don't. I don't park my cash anywhere. Nowhere in particular. I try to trade all my money if I can. Yeah, this ILMN's interesting. Another nice little high type flag setting up in the XLV space. Neo, this also looks like a biotech, if I'm not mistaken. I've seen a lot of these setups recently in the biotech space. Good, but not great. Maybe just trying to turn the corner, but the 200 day still falling. Yeah, SGML lithium names. Yeah, I'm very familiar with what these things have been doing. Nice ramp up this morning. Back at $9. Still a very nice ramp. Yeah, ALB. Very nice. It depends, right? If we're coming out of a big base, normally the sideways is months. If we're coming out of a high type flag, normally the consolidation could be 1 to 3 weeks. Yeah, I don't mind GDX. If you look at a lot of these names, they all look identical. So they had a little bit of a gap down. They got bought up. They put them 2 inside days. Look at NEM. Look at AEM. Look at GFI. Look at AU. Look at HL. Look at KGC. They all look identical. So when things look identical like this, you recognize it's because it's the same pool of capital flows, right? It's the same money, right? It's the same institutions. They're doing the exact same thing. And your job is just to focus on the basket. And if the basket is acting well, take one of them, right? And then if you gain traction, you take another. So I don't know that it needs more sideways. They're all acting identical. So if they're all trying to go higher together, right, it's just a matter of how do I get involved. PL didn't hit the declining 50-day yesterday, for what it's worth. The declining 50-day is not up until almost $13. So it hit like the declining 5-day, which isn't enough for me to get aggressive on it. If it would have hit the 50-day, it would have been all the way to 1270. Nat gas hitting some highs. Yeah, nat gas looks pretty good. Yeah, I'm down to such a small position in Oklo. I still have a short on from $146. I'm like looking for an excuse to get out of this thing, but at the same time, I'm almost looking for an excuse to add some back. Funny. I literally have peanut size, so I don't know what the heck I'm going to do with it. What are some of the biggest mistakes you've had to overcome as a swing trader? Being too early. Being too early, which equates me still being wrong. And that leads to a little bit of frustration. Like when you have a thesis, you like it, you know something can go higher, you're in it, but you're in it early. And then taking the loss and then watching the thing then go without you days or weeks later. So, kind of learning to deal with that. Those are some of the biggest mistakes. Like being early with big size is just, hurts. Um, yeah, those have been some big mistakes. VRT. But just because you get stopped out of something doesn't mean you can't buy it back. VRT bought it 3 times only to get stopped out for the third time. How do you know when to enter? Well, you want to buy something when it's coming out of a tight area, right? You look at VRT, it really hasn't given you a tight area to buy. I mean, this thing has been choppy as all hell, but really like higher lows against key moving averages. I mean, this was fairly tight bouncing off the 50-day, and then it got really, really tight just off that 50-day. It hasn't really set up in a nice way for a long time. This one's kind of had a choppy characteristic for a long while. And when something is too choppy, by the way, the best place to buy it is off of an ascending moving average. Lemonade. Yeah, maybe lemonade would be pretty good when it takes out its high volume close 78.75. The reason I shorted SNDK is because it was up more than 10% of its average true range from the 50. It was like one of the only stocks in the market that's trading over $1 billion market cap that was at the time this extended from the 50 simple moving average, right? Almost everything else in the market has come down. And that's because when people need liquidity, institutions, they go to the names when they're getting beaten up in other places in the market, they go to sell some of their best winners. That's typically how it works. Again, that's not to say that I won't get stopped out. But names that are extended in particular in this market have all had mean reversion. So that's it, right? Just thinking a little bit of mean reversion and plus the mean reversion trade, whether, and I'm not trying to compare like a cipher to an SNDK because obviously it's apples to oranges, but just the setup itself in terms of mean reversion, Rigetti, Oklo, Iron, SNDK, cipher, even Nugget when it got far too stretched with gold, when this thing got well ahead of itself in here, the mean reversion trade has been very, very profitable. So just kind of going back to what has been working, despite somebody being like, well, Ariel, it's super strong. I would agree with you, but it's just a setup that's been paying me very well, right? That's the important part. I've been trading them well, so I keep going back to the thing, as I mentioned before, that's working for me. If flat base breakouts are working, I look for more of those. If high type flags are working, I look for more of those. If earnings gap ups are working, I look for more of those. If earning gap downs are working, I look for more of the, like, I just keep doing the thing where I'm handed money, right? Has it been a little bit of a pain in the butt on SNDK? Yes, absolutely. There are some names that are, yeah, BTU is interesting. Maybe setting up a little low cheat setup here, maybe buyable just off the 50-day as a higher low setup. In which case, and you could tell these commodities, they're all kind of trading the same exact way. Pull back, double inside day. Doesn't even matter. This thing isn't even gold. Funny how that's working, man. Yeah, that's it. When Jordan, that's something that you have to take into account, right? When you're noticing your setup isn't working, or like you like to buy breakouts and that's not working, it's not that the setup doesn't work. It's that the environment isn't friendly to that. You have to kind of pick up on that. And it looks like you have been, so that's good. Is BW a random stock for me? Yes. It trades $33 million a day, and it's got a 13 ATR, and BW is, let me tell you right now. Oops. BW is a Badcock and Wilcox Enterprise. Pretty crummy on the EPS. Yeah, there's not much there. Yeah, gold theme might be interesting into today. We'll see. Thoughts on Google? I actually like the way Google is setting up a high type flag. Nothing wrong with Google here. It looks pretty good if you ask me. I would rather buy a ETF in the biotech space versus an actual ETF. Yeah, the VLO's gapping down with XOM. You got to look at crude oil. Crude oil is down almost 3% this morning, or it was down 3% this morning. Right? Not helpful to some of these names. Too thin. Too thin. Guys, you guys should know how liquid a stock is. And I'm not saying, you can't always, or you should never trade stocks that are, sub 30 million bucks a day, but it's difficult. Sup V, yeah, it looks good. The whole group looks very, very similar. It's not just Sup V. Look at GGAL, look at YPF, look at BBAR. TMDX, the CEO bought. I don't know if I would make too big of a deal about it. But yeah, could be interesting. When I'm doing a 30 and 90-day RS scan, do you put a fundamental filter after you have noticed rotation? Yes. And one of the easiest things you can do is, I'll just give you an example. I'll pull up one of my screeners. What the heck is going on here? Here we go. One of the things that you can do is just add a sales growth filter, quarter over quarter and trailing 12 months. Right onto FinViz if you want it. How do I see LAR? Way too thin. Way too thin. I don't want to trade LAR. I want to trade ALB and SQM. It's fine, but guys, 14 million bucks a day. There's nobody trading that. That's not saying it can't go higher, but like, you got to realize, like, institutions can't really play in that pool. How do I overcome being early? Great question, but the answer is very simple. I take my stop when my stop triggers, and I rebuy it if the setup is still there. I can talk to FinViz about this. I can talk to them about adding a 20-day dollar volume. So, or 30-day, 20-day. It's like 20 trading days a month typically. So, but yeah, I can talk to them about this. You plan to not trade the S&P and NASDAQ are back in an uptrend. Does this make sense? Yeah. I mean, it makes sense, but you might miss one of the best moments in the market, which is the follow-through day, right? A follow-through day is one of the best moments in the market to get involved. And usually it happens when the market is still technically looking like it's in a downtrend. right? But somebody experienced will notice that it's a follow through day, and they'll have setups before the market triggers that follow through day, ready to go in the case that, or in the instance that there might be a follow through day. So while I understand what you're saying, Lionel, sometimes waiting for the markets to be back into a very clear uptrend is not going to be super helpful for you, right? You want to learn and study what a follow through day is. Well, Nvidia is technically gapping up today before earnings, so it's not looking entirely weak. Just a pull back into ascending moving averages before maybe going higher. Who knows? Yeah, comfort systems fix. Yeah, who knows? I don't really see a clean setup, but I'll keep an eye on it. It's liquid. It moves quickly. Yeah, ISRG, not bad. Not bad. Who knows? Maybe today is a higher low setup over today's highs. Yeah, this one could also maybe be a nice little buy off over yesterday's highs, effectively as a 50 simple moving average hold. But Shane, you probably heard me talk about this last night on last night's watch list video. There isn't a ton to do going into Nvidia's earnings. The last thing you want to do is get too aggressive, and then Nvidia with the binary event gaps down, and it will drag the market with it. Rivian a little sloppy here, little sloppy. Apple definitely showing relative strength. There's a pretty clear line in the sand for Apple. Kind of feels like this is where institutions have been hiding the last few days. But yeah, like an Apple is well above 1010's low, and Nvidia actually broke that level. So yeah, kind of feels like we're hiding a little bit here. 267, 266 will be an interesting spot to see if we can hold. I didn't enter Costco short, no, but it was crystal clear yesterday that it was a short. You can just build one. Dude, I'm telling you, Perplexity, you just say, I need a 20-day average daily range script for Thinkorswim. You just plug that into OpenAI or Perplexity or, any of the others, Gemini, and it'll spit one out for you right away. If that doesn't work, let me know. You could always share. What the hell happened here? PayPal can't really get worse for this name, can it? Yeah, and I mean, look, dude, to each their own, right? That's what makes the market. Some people use SMAs, some people use EMAs. I use SMAs because it gives equal weight to the entire time period, right? EMAs, it puts more weighting on the most recent ones. I shot a 87 this weekend. 87. And I played terrible on the back half. Yeah, Google is tightening up in a range now above the 20-day. It's just been going sideways now for 2 weeks, actually. This is actually 3 weeks. This is 14 bars. And this 14 days of sideways has allowed this 50 simple moving average to catch up. That's exactly, what's going on. Yeah, BP, I will. Be on the lookout. If you're in a winner and you've got a lot of cushion from a long run, but it's doing nothing, how do you give it? No, I just, as long as it's above a key moving average, like the 50-day, and I'll use ARC as an example because I was in this one for 5 months, right? If I'm in this thing from lower and then it's doing nothing in here, or in here, I'm just doing nothing, right? That's it. I have a script right here that tells me daily dollar volume, Amir. Yeah, I can drop that suggestion to FinViz right now. Um, Actually, give me a quick second so I don't forget, and I can just message them right now really quickly. Oh, wait a second. Let me just triple check something. I'm looking at to see if they've got a daily dollar volume. No, they don't. Okay, cool. At least I don't think so. All right. And I'm just triple checking, making sure I'm not sending something that I haven't already seen. So they have built an average true range filter already, TK. They already built one. I just wanted to make sure. But yes, they built an average true range filter already. So that's been built. What average dollar volume would you consider for under 100K account? I mean, realistically, 50 million, 40 million. Here's the reality. There's no real reason to be trading illiquid names. Like with the leveraged ETFs out there nowadays, there's just no real reason to. You can get all of the, all of the range that you want, and for the most part they've got the dollar volume attached to it. When would I say enter open? I mean, could it technically play out as a higher low setup today? Maybe. Maybe. Thoughts on IMAX make me want to go watch a movie. Yeah, not bad. I don't know what the hell's going on in the water with IMAX, but it looks pretty dang good, man. Oh, ask them to add an ADR filter. You really don't need an ADR filter. ATR will take care of it. I mean, I can ask, but I just asked them if they could throw in a daily dollar volume filter, and actually, I should. And I just told them with the length of 1 month. Yeah, I mean, good, but not great. TARS, it's fine. Again, just a little of liquid here. Little of liquid, and it's not really extended. It's fine. Just not, I don't even know what group this is in, so it's hard to comment. Let me check really quick. Biotech's been leading, man, so not bad. No, Dash is below the 200. Dash isn't holding up. I mean, when it gets back above the 200 all on its own, then I'll agree with you, but for now, it's just living below the 200. How do you know if a stock is too thin? You look at its daily dollar volume. EOSE just did an offering yesterday. XOM has to break that 120-ish level, and they're gapping down today. Pullbacks against ascending moving averages are something that you could probably take a look at. Maybe, but I don't know if it's going to be a short-term bounce until I see Nvidia post earnings. Yeah. Current volume. Let me look. Screener. Oh. Yeah, no. Current volume isn't what I want. I want daily dollar volume. Current volume isn't it. I mean, I could look again, but well, they'll respond to me, and then if it is, I'll let you guys know, and they'll tell me exactly how to find it. Like just where you can like input, your dollar volume, and then or like how much you need it to be trading, and then your length of days. No, what you'll notice before a follow through day is you'll notice a handful of stocks acting well. Those are the stocks you want to go and buy when you get a follow through day. I don't know where institutions are going to rotate and what the new themes are going to be when that follow through day comes. That's why you have to do your homework every night. The only name I'm long at the moment is NEM. Would I consider Unity as a setup? I mean, it's gapping up quite a bit today. This is good. Hopefully, it'll gap up and then it'll start to hold the 50. I don't know that I don't know that I'm buying a gap up right now. Yeah, I'm not buying 8% gap ups at the moment. I'm not buying into supply. And there's been quite a bit of that lately. Yeah, due to oil. Yeah. Yeah, there's a 3% gap down going on with crude right now at the moment. Yeah, I was looking at the current volume list. So I see it here as there's like a custom. Yeah, current volume under 50K, over 1 million US dollars, over 1 million, over 10 million, over 100 million, over 1 billion. So you just have to make it custom. Okay, I see. I'll play with it a little bit and see if that helps me out. Yeah, thanks for that heads up. Yeah, I'll kind of look at it. SMR, there's no setup there, long or short. It's too beaten up to think it's a good long, and maybe a bit of mean reversion, but I'm not looking for the lows on this turd. But maybe, it could easily bounce for a couple days. It's obviously moving higher a little bit right now because of Oklo, but there's no setup there. What other shorts besides SNDK? Yeah, I'm short TSM from Monday against the 50-day. I'm short Cypher from 25 bucks, literally nailed the highs against 11.3 highs. I'm short Oklo from 146, and I'm short Rigetti from 37. Appreciate you guys. It is 8:20. I got to get going. Time for stream. Appreciate you guys, and I will see you guys tomorrow morning. Please just be thoughtful. It's NVIDIA earnings tomorrow, and then we have jobs report on Thursday. So you don't have to be in a rush to own anything. If the market is still in an uptrend, we're going to get a whole lot of time to get re-involved in the market. You do not have to rush yourself back in. There's going to be plenty of setups, undercut rallies, high type flags, earnings gap ups, you name it. So just relax, slow down. Market's not going anywhere. It's a long career, right? We've got the rest of our lives to do this job. I will see you guys tomorrow morning. Later.